She entered the classroom with the quiet assurance of someone who had nothing to prove. Yet everything about her suggested she was being evaluated. Ms. Emily Hart, 58 years old, hair neatly gathered into a bun, glasses that made her appear too gentle for high school, and a loose cardigan that only reinforced the idea it was her first day at Millstone High. Although she had many years of experience teaching in private schools and community centers, nothing had truly prepared her for the stares she encountered here. Murmurs began the instant she turned away from the whiteboard. She's ancient. Probably won't last a minute in a real class. Bet she has never even been in a fight. From the back, there was a smirk from Cody Reynolds, the class clown, instigator, and son of the district superintendent, yelling, "Hey, Miss Hart, you sure you can handle this jungle?" Emily did not flinch. She turned slowly, offered a gentle smile, and answered, "A jungle usually has creatures that roar louder than they bite. But I have worked in a few jungles before." Her tone was steady and her gaze sharp, quieting the room just long enough to finish handing out the syllabus. Yet the doubt had been sown. By the third period, videos were spreading of students secretly taking pictures of her, zooming in on her practical shoes, outdated laptop, slow walk. Emily understood how this game was played. She had taught in harsher environments, yes, but that was a long time ago, before she lost her husband, before sorrow overwhelmed her, before she decided to start anew in this small town, trying to reconstruct something that once felt like a true calling. By the end of the week, the whispers had become harsher. Notes appeared on her desk, a drawing attached to her classroom door depicting her with a cane and the phrase, "Retirement's that way, Granny." Emily removed it quietly. She didn't report the incident and didn't shed a tear. But that evening in the small, quiet house she now called home, she opened a worn wooden box tucked beneath her bed. Inside lay a black belt, carefully folded, its fabric softened from many years of practice. Beneath it was a faded photograph showing her younger self standing proudly beside her husband, both dressed in full martial arts uniforms, sweat shining on the medals around their necks. She traced her finger over his face and murmured, "You tell me not to let it affect me. You say to teach the lesson without a word." The following Monday, Emily arrived early, wearing the same cardigan and carrying the same gentle smile. But her steps held greater confidence and her eyes showed a new determination. She observed her students trickling in, some still giggling, others readying their phones to capture any potential embarrassment. When the bell rang, she calmly took her place at the front of the room. "Today," she began, without showing any sign of nervousness, "we are going to discuss discipline. Not the kind imposed by being sent to the principal's office, but the kind that originates from within." Cody snorted, "Like yoga and tea?" The class laughed, but Emily did not join in. Instead, she walked to the front row and carefully placed a small piece of chalk on the desk. Emily placed her hand on the desk and asked, "Who here believes they can snatch this from my grip before I pull away?" The room fell silent as students exchanged glances. Then Cody stood up, grinning as if he'd just received an unexpected present. "You serious?" She nodded. "Go ahead." He cautiously moved forward, still chuckling. Phones were recording. He reached out, but in a flash, Emily's hand shifted. Her wrist changed position. Her stance grew firm. And Cody's fingers were caught in a hold so quick he froze. She applied no pain, just enough force to restrain him and deliver a clear message. A moment later, she released him and he stepped back, face flushed. Silence filled the room. Nobody laughed this time. Emily returned to the front, explaining, "Discipline is what prevents you from using strength simply because you possess it, but never confuse silence with weakness." The lesson continued without interruptions or jokes. From that moment, something transformed in the classroom, not only in how the students saw her, but also in their self-perception. In the days after, Talk about Ms. Hart spread quickly. Some students insisted she must have military training. Others imagined she was once a secret operative or a champion of underground fighting rings. The reality was much simpler, and in many respects, more profound. Emily had dedicated over 3 decades to martial arts. She earned her black belt after a long, challenging path. This journey included the heartbreaking loss of a child, the near breakup of her marriage, and a lengthy process of recovery. Through every kata and practice session, she rebuilt strength not just in body but in spirit. Martial arts sparring had never been about fighting for her. It was a means of survival, a way to keep going when her heart felt unbearably heavy. That particular week, a few students stayed behind after class. One of them, Mia, approached Emily with hesitation. "Did you really practice karate?" she asked with a doubtful tone. Emily smiled gently. "I started Shodokan in my 20s. I still train whenever possible." Mia glanced down at her hands. "Do you teach it to others?" There was a delicate note in her voice, but Emily did not push. "Not officially, but if someone wants to learn, I would teach them." Mia nodded and slipped out quietly. The next day she arrived early, accompanied by another girl. By Friday, 5 students were silently gathering in Emily's room before the bell, watching her perform techniques on the worn blue mat she had spread on the floor. The lessons were never loud or flashy, just focused on breathing, posture, and respect. Emily emphasized concentration before technique and control before strength. Word spread not through gossip, but by the changes seen in the students. Those who once slouched now sat tall. They paid more attention, laughed less at others, and shared more laughter together. Cody, unexpectedly, was the one who transformed the most. He still told jokes and played the class clown, but something inside had softened. One morning, he stayed behind after class and confessed, "I wasn't trying to be cruel. I just thought you were an easy target." Emily did not reprimand him. She calmly said, "People who feel small. Sometimes people try to make others feel small, but that does not mean it is acceptable. It simply shows understanding." Cody looked at her quietly for a while and then asked, "Could I try to learn as well?" Emily responded with a soft smile. "Anyone can learn. The real question is whether you are prepared to unlearn first." So Cody became part of a small group before class. It was never about being strong or showy. It was about listening, gaining knowledge, and acting deliberately. For the first time, he was not seeking attention. He was focused on finding harmony within himself. Then the moment arrived when everything connected. One Monday morning, a substitute was expected to take over Emily's class. The students anticipated the usual easy day with movies or maybe some worksheets. However, the substitute never showed up. Instead, Principal Hayes came in to supervise the session, accompanied by 2 school board members conducting unannounced evaluations. They sat stiffly in the back, watching intensely like hawks. Mia's hand trembled as she raised it, and Cody kept glancing nervously toward the observers. The room was filled with tension, but 10 minutes later, Emily entered carrying a single, thin book. Without any notes or screens, she apologized for her delay, placed the book on the desk, and began speaking calmly. She discussed philosophy, exploring the link between stillness and thought, breath and discipline. She connected these ideas to literature, science, and everyday life. Then she shared the story of a boy who once bullied her when she was a young teacher, and explained how that experience inspired her to discover her own strength. Not through shouting nor through punishment, but by choosing not to crumble under pressure, the classroom remained silent. The silence was not born from fear, but from a shared feeling that even the board members, typically rigid and doubtful, began to acknowledge with slow nods. By the end of the session, Principal Hayes approached Emily privately and admitted, "I have never witnessed them this quiet," his eyes wide with surprise. It feels like they respect you more than any educator we have seen in years." Emily responded with a nod, explaining, "I do not merely teach subjects. I instruct them on how to carry themselves, something no textbook can provide." Then, only 14 days later, an unexpected event unfolded when a video emerged online. Security footage leaked from a hallway camera captured a senior from a different class pushing a smaller student into the lockers. Just before the situation escalated, a figure intervened. It was Cody. Calm and composed without aggression, he positioned himself between the two, using the stance that Emily had taught him. He spoke without shouting and did not swing a single punch, only maintained stillness. And it was effective. The senior retreated. No one was harmed, yet everyone witnessed the transformation. When Emily saw the video, she remained silent. However, later that day, Cody placed a small note on her desk saying, "Thank you for showing me that the strongest people are those who do not need to strike first." She folded the note and slipped it into the wooden box that held her black belt and old photos. She was no longer simply a teacher, but living proof that age does not diminish strength and pain does not weaken resolve, diminish the intent and that silent resilience, the type shaped by many years of experience. It is through losing and gaining wisdom that this strength is built. This kind of power transforms not only thoughts, but also emotions deeply.